Dungeons & Dragons: The Legend of Drizzt is the third D&D board game from Wizards of the Coast that uses a modified version of their 4th edition RPG's rules. This one follows the adventures of popular character Drizzt Do'Urden, and a few of the scenarios in the game actually let you play through his stories from earlier books.
In The Legend of Drizzt, you pick one of 7 different heroes to play at the beginning of the game, and you pick the scenario that you're going to be working through. Each scenario has a different objective and a different style of play, with there being team play, competitive, and cooperative different elements. Depending on which scenario you play, it can be 60 minutes or it can be up to a few hours. You can play all of them solo, or you can play with up to 5 players.
So at the start of the game, each player chooses a hero that they're going to play, and these heroes come with a range of utility, at-will, and daily powers, which you can mix and match a little bit to customize them to your individual playing style. It's also something that helps keep them fresh on multiple playthroughs. The other thing that you do at the start is lay out the starting tile, put your adventures on it, and add any monsters or other starting features that have been assigned to you by the particular scenario. Each turn follows a series of phases. The first is the hero phase, in which the heroes move and attack. Then there's the exploration phase, where new tiles are added to the map, and this is followed by the villain phase, where the monsters get to move and attack you.
So for the first 4 scenarios, the players start on the generic starting tile, and then explore the caverns by turning over new tiles and trying to find the villain and defeating him. Each time the hero moves to the edge of explored territory, you turn over a new cavern tile. And then a monster card is drawn, and the monster is placed on the mushroom pile in the center of that cavern. Now, if a player doesn't explore during the game, or if when you turn over a cavern tile the arrows on it are black, that means that we're going to draw an encounter card. Now, encounter cards tend to be bad news for the players, so it's usually a good idea to keep moving, keep exploring as fast and as much as you can.
The Legend of Drizzt also introduces a few team scenarios where opposing teams of players will compete with each other to fulfill whatever the scenario's objective is faster than the other guys. There are also a couple competitive scenarios where players are going to have to just completely turn on each other in order to win the game. The other thing the game introduces is cavern edge tiles, which allow you to build a pre-designed board, and those host scenarios where you're either fighting your way through hordes and hordes of enemies, or you start in the center and try to find your way out before the game ends.
So in all the D&D board games, monsters are managed by a series of responses and conditions that are listed on the monster card. Now, each monster is allocated to the player that drew them, and they tend to activate on that player's turn unless there are other monsters on the board that are of the same type. So due to this mechanic, this allows the board games to get away without a dungeon master. So keeps the game moving quickly, it keeps the rules really simple to follow.
So let's take a minute to talk about how Legend of Drizzt stacks up against the earlier 2 D&D board games. It's a little bit easier to win than either Wrath of Ashardalon or Castle Ravenloft, with more powerful heroes and slightly less powerful villains. It does, however, introduce the awesome team and competitive mechanics as well as the cavern edge tiles, so it really expands your range of options for strategic play. It does, however, lack the campaign mode and the really big battle set pieces of Wrath of Ashardalon, and Castle Ravenloft still has the best pre-written scenarios.
So I really had a good time playing this game. I'm a D&D player and I found it simple and fun, and it was just, a short encounter. It was great. Good time. Another really great thing about this game is the flavor. If you're a fan of the Drizzt books, you can play all the characters in them, which is fantastic, so you'll have a really good time doing that. Another good thing, those competitive and team play scenarios. That's a new thing introduced in this particular D&D board game. They weren't in the other ones, and it's a great addition. A con, on the other hand, this game doesn't have very much crossover ability to the old D&D board games, which is a shame. And you also lose out on that campaign play, which is too bad as well. That was a nice part of the game.
As we mentioned before, the heroes in this game can feel just a little bit overpowered, which is great if you're a new player who's a little bit intimidated by dungeon crawlers, but can put off more experienced players who are looking for a challenge. That being said, one thing that this game has absolutely awesome crossover with is 4th edition D&D, the role-playing game. Not only can you steal the really nice miniatures to use in your D&D campaigns, but the way that it works is similar enough to D&D 4th edition with things like the power cards that it can work as an introduction or even a crossover. It can also just be a nice way for folk who are used to playing D&D to get in some nice role-playing and a little bit of a dungeon crawl without having to find a DM for that night or for a full campaign.